Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show with my beautiful co-host, the one, the only, the Branthipus herself, Yolanda M. Smith.
What's up, Drake? Okay, what's that? That was the sexy baritone.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
me just tell you, come on in.
That was that beast frame of mind attitude.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? It works every time because today's a good show.
It's probably, to me, it's going to be one of the best shows because, the last couple of seasons, I'm always talking about generational wealth. I'm always talking about legacy. I'm talking about how we can get along as human beings, how we need to know ourselves.
Well, we're going to add one more component.
What's the one component?
HBCU.
I forgot about that. How can I forget about that? I have a scholarship to Albany State College, now known as Albany State University.
Well, the lady we have today, she's fabulous. And she's I think maybe they call it a Fiskite. I don't know. I think it's a Fiskite. But anyway, let's welcome to the show. She's going to introduce herself because you know what? I can't do it justice.
These titles in these titles that she has.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. So
talk about accomplished.
Yeah.
We're going to let you have it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, beloveds. I can't thank you enough. So who am I? I am Global United Nations Peace Ambassador. NGO means non-governmental organization. Dr. Angela J. Nealy.
Welcome to the
Master
show.
of Science and Masters and PhD. Thank you.
And my high school classmate. We got to throw that in there.
I'm so
Got to throw
honored.
that in.
What high school? North Central?
We went to North Central.
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely fabulous. She's the famous one, and they
Nah.
let me hang out with her.
Yeah, right.
Somebody
But
believe that.
she's got the UN title, so what does that tell you? Okay, let's talk about famous. No, but it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's an honor, and I'm humbled.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I think you know what, you have had a very unique and exciting career, a journey in life, and so we're excited today to hear a little bit about that.
Check this out before we even get started. So I talked to her on the phone, and we might as well talk for almost it had to be over almost 2 hours. We were still talking.
Yeah, we were still talking.
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah,
my
she
goodness.
has a.
Yes.
I was.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So share with us a little bit about your history.
There's so much to tell. I will go way back to the 1800s. And so my great-great-grandfather, on my father's side, is the Reverend Hiram Rhodes Revels. His career ended, I'll do the ending and then I'll go back to the beginning. His career ended as the president of what you now call Alcorn State University, but originally it was Revels University when he started it.
Okay.
So when he passed away in 1901, he was still president of the university. So back that up. So he's from North Carolina. He's a free man. He goes into the seminary, goes to Baltimore, comes to Ohio, comes to Indiana, and starts the AME Church in Terre Haute, Indiana. He's a huge part of the Underground Railroad that sent and saved our people and got us through to Canada.
Yes.
Life-saving mission. Had a school there. Married our great-great-grandmother, Phoebe Bass, and they together had 6 daughters. Three lived, three did not. Well, back then in that time,
Yes.
medical and all and access. And so they stayed in Terre Haute, had the church, and they had the boarding house next to the church. They then go to Mississippi or called to Mississippi. The men are called, the women, the way things were, So they go to Mississippi. He gets the opportunity. He's an attorney general for a little while, and then he gets elected on the floor to be the first black senator. And so the 11th one, obviously, was our VP now of the United States. So he's the first black senator, not with a tremendous amount of trepidation. He's in this magazine. He's on the cover of the magazine's VP Harris. On the page 29 is my great-great-grandfather. And he talked about the fact that black folk just, I'm using my words, just were not treated well, and we need to be treated well. We need to be treated like human beings. So
Amazing.
That's where that is, and then you kind of go through and come to where we are now, 2023. But there's more in between.
Yeah.
But that's the beginning.
Go ahead. We done got excited. Look, we all like. Who gonna ask first? Who gonna ask?
Yeah.
So,
You're talking about a time period during slavery.
What?
the Reconstruction of America.
Yeah, but he's a free man. He's a free man, 1850s, and he's functioning as a free man from Baltimore, through Pennsylvania, through Ohio, through Indiana, the most racist state I think, one of the most racist states next to Mississippi in the Union. And the KKK, while it started in Mississippi, but it migrated, to Indiana. But he's still functioning in a time, 45 minutes up north is where the KKK is doing their craziness. And he's in Terre Haute, Indiana, and he's smuggling. That's really what he's doing, smuggling our people through the underground process, to freedom in Canada.
And I guess
and teaching.
I could be wrong, but people need to understand during that time transition too, the Reconstruction, you can still get your papers taken away from you and be recaptured and put back into the slavery system.
Yes, he was never a slave. My great-grandfather on my mother's side was a slave and walked from South Carolina 1,000 miles to Terre Haute, what we call Lost Creek, and farmland, and ran away with a slave owner's daughter. So as he's walking behind the wagon with the horse, he's doing that in the states where it was definitely slave catchers, and in the states where it was free, he would act like they were together. So they settled in. They happened to have settled in Terre Haute. They happened to settle in what's called Lost Creek, which is still there. Black cemetery, the whole 9 yards. Black farmers. Our people were black farmers. So that's one side of my family. That's my mother's side, and my father's side is free. And my mother's side, came from slavery. So my dad raised us, our parents who adopted us, raised us as free people. They raised us with a free mindset, and I can't emphasize that enough. Some people are not raised with a free mindset.
And
you can be physically free, but that mind is still in captivity.
And so it's the expectation in our family. So my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother were business owners. Technically,
Right.
I mean, they had the school and they had the church, and those were businesses back then. And then my grandfather, Robert George Nealy, he was also an entrepreneur because he was the pastor of the AME church. But that's the other part that my great-grandfather started. And they had the boarding house for the black soldiers from World War I all the way to World War II. So he was an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. He was the vice president and a part owner of what's called Eton Kobe, which obviously doesn't exist any longer. Medinco bought them out, and so the stocks and all that paid for us to go to school without any hesitation. But he also had a laboratory in our house. So I grew up knowing about chemistry from a little kid. I got a chemistry set when I was 8. But it was expected that we become entrepreneurs. Everybody in our family, male, female, entrepreneurs. My mother took in washing. She was a maid when she started. Her mother was a maid, and her mother was a maid. That's just how it was.
Yeah.
But as times changed and things got better and education was afforded, we could get better, or my grandmother could get better jobs. So in doing so, she had washing and stuff, and she was taking in her ironing or whatever, but she also got better jobs. And my dad had the laboratory, he was the professor, but they worked together and built wealth. We learned about the stock market when I was a kid. I was reading Wall Street Journal when I was 12 and 13.
Wow.
So following stocks way back then.
This is amazing.
Let me hold
and
you.
to be in a black family, huh?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that was
absolutely.
the anomaly, not the.
So in terms of generational wealth, it was expected that we pass down what we owned, and what we owned was land and homes and farmland. And so in my family, I'm the matriarch now, I expect that what I own now will be passed down to the women. That's what it is in my will. I have a trust, all of that. It will be passed down to the women in my family. It is expected that they learn how to be an entrepreneur.
What do you think has changed now? Why did we lose that connectiveness to understand generational wealth? And more importantly, how do we understand the importance of legacy?
When we opened up the show, before we opened up the show, I asked you, what is your name and how did you get your name? And you told me. And then I asked Miss Yolanda, how'd she get her name? And you're looking at me like, why is that so important? Well, in our time, okay, and during slavery and after slavery and all of that, our names were never really ours. So I'll give you an example. Nealy, Nealy, used to be Neally, like the slave owner's name. My grandfather, Robert George Nealy, during World War I, World War II, changed. He said, I don't want my name to be like slave owner's name. So he changed it from 2 L's to 1. So our name is so important,
Right.
how we earned our name. And I really do emphasize that, how we earned our name. And going back to what your question was, how did we get away from that? There are a number of things that happened. And I listened to my father all the time. God, I miss him. He said, we were better when we were segregated because we were forced to invent all the things we invented, all the things we created.
and had that community and
And had that
support
community.
and
We-
the village
We
and
weren't
the
about trying to stab each other in the back. We
You're
were about
right.
trying to watch your back.
Like I said, colonialism basically is a form of enslavement, no matter what your race is.
That's right. That's right. No matter what your race is. And so when your mind is held captive, your body just follows.
Right.
And your hands follow. But it is hands that build.
That's right.
There you go. It's
Well,
hands.
and if you even take it back, way back, right? Because I did some research back several years ago and was following the Moors, you know, who sort of migrated.
Who were black folk.
More,
in Morocco.
more black, yeah.
Lincoln was, there were 5 Negro presidents.
You
Lincoln
know,
was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you kind of look at it from back there and the sheer brilliance. The sheer brilliance that we bought based off of our instincts to survive. So you had to do this, you had to do that. And when you look at even the Moors going to Europe, rescuing a country that was going down fast for lack of resources, and I'm not talking about, the natural resources, I'm talking about the intellectual resources. They had to go over there and really connect electricity and all these things so that the country could thrive. But then through the process, all of a sudden books weren't allowed. Schooling wasn't allowed. These
Isn't
sort
that
of things.
interesting what's happening now?
Yeah.
Because you take it away because that's your way to gain the power.
Right.
Because what do we say? Knowledge is power. It's amazing.
I remember sharing with you over the phone, and as a kid, I was always intrigued with history, and I remember the teacher talking to my mom and said something's wrong with him. I said, well, what's wrong? Because I'm questioning history when I'm only being taught that the only contributing factors, me as a man of color, did a cotton gin or did this and did this, and I didn't see anything of positivity.
Right.
Now, to go back to what Yolanda was saying just a second ago, I see on social media that they're trying to get rid of the superintendent because
they did. They didn't try. She's gone.
Because she is empowering the history of Black history, and they're saying that Black history is violence. I don't remember hearing any violence about.
It's the critical race theory, or it's this thing and this thing.
It can only teach violence. How you gonna teach? I don't remember any part of
go
history
to Florida and listen.
It has to do with Black people that deal with violence.
Well, listen to the governor in Florida and talk about. Anyway, y'all, are we going down that road or what?
Hey, I'm looking at a lot of history here, and that's why I want to know.
Which way we going here? So Dad said, that was one thing he said. But the other thing he said, Jim Crow is not dead. He always reminded me throughout my career as he advised me, Jim Crow is not dead. What does that mean? That means that what we're doing and doing well, other individuals who may not look like us they do have a tremendous jealousy. I have noticed that. And as intelligent and as bright as we are, and we teach in our homes to ask questions, to read, to study. I talk about this too, and that is, in my home, my library should be bigger than my TV.
Okay, say that again for the people in the back. One more time.
My library should be bigger than my TV. So if everything I'm watching on this little screen TV is telling me everything, but everything is really in the books, which I think that came out of Nubia, the Nubian, the first people, and as people intermarried, got lighter. But we all, and from a genetic point of view, we're just one race, and that is, we're just one human race. But genetically, we're just one human race. But color is a construct. It was a construct to economically divide and to create this scenario that this is bad and this is good. So now we come back to our people in our areas where we were segregated. We would work together. We didn't stab each other in the back. We looked out for each other until economics came into the play.
Right.
And so now we're taught that slavery is economic, whatever. It was, but it was also more horrible than that. But that's not where we started. When I started to tell the story of my great-grandfather, I talked about the end of his life, and then I talked about the beginning of his life. So the beginning of our life is truly over in the 56 nations of Africa. And all the folk of Africa are Igbo and different tribes who look different ways. The Watusi, some are tall, some are short, some are light, some have just, more fine hair, some coarse hair, whatever. But you have their own languages. In Nigeria, I think there's 80 languages just of the one Yoruba that they speak. But the point is, in that the natural resources are all in Africa. The Hope Diamond, the uranium that's in South Africa, and the blood diamonds on the west coast of Africa, it's all there.
People fail to realize the first war, not World War I, not World War II, the first major war was other countries fighting in Africa to get those resources.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Germany,
Exactly.
Russia, all those
exactly.
Trying to
countries
take
fought.
it over.
And so then you ask, well, how do we get back to where we were?
Right.
Well, technology has now come along.
Yes.
Okay, the fast food industry has come along and all those things. And you have to remember, too, from my side of the world, the science part of the world is if we can't make them work and do for us, we're going to kill them. So how do we do that? Well, let's look at our diet.
Boom.
What was available to us in that time frame from 1619 to 1865?
The
scraps
scraps.
from the table. And that's all we had. But we learned how to till the land when we could.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not that far out from 1865. I think people have to understand that. And so
Say that again.
We are not that far out from 1865.
No.
And I think that's where we run into problems because people say, well, how important,
That was way back
I said,
then.
look, that wasn't that far ago.
That wasn't that far ago. When you look at 1619 to 1865, that's a broader span of
Yes,
time.
yes,
You do
yes.
math in public. And so from 1865 to now,
Yeah.
The math ain't mathing.
not that long ago.
But you know what's so funny when you say that? People go, well, that wasn't that long ago. The number one show on TV is 1823, and then Yellowstone that talks about the reconstruction of America from the Civil War to individuals taking over the land on the west to migrate. I said, come on, man, that wasn't that long ago. It's the number one show on TV.
And then look at the skills we did have, but under duress. So now the skills that we did have, the quadrillions, and I've lost track of how many quadrillions is owed to us. We were tilling the land under duress, but not that we could sell for our own self. But we had that skill.
That's right.
We had that skill, but we didn't have our own land. Oh, while it was promised the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
But the knowledge, you can't take it like your mom and daddy told you, granddaddy told you, your great-great-grandma told you. They can't take that education from you, and they cannot.
That's right.
And so we have that knowledge, and over in the continent where we were brought unwillingly, okay, we didn't come over on the Santa Pinta and all the Maria, whatever. We came unwillingly, and we're lost. 100 million were lost at sea by mental illness, jumping. I wouldn't want my children to be in,
What do you say to somebody, not to cut you off, but
go ahead.
we're gonna go down there. Hey, subscribe, like, share.
Yes.
We got a great show. We're definitely talking legacy, generational wealth. We're talking history beyond belief. You will have individuals that will say your own people. I hear this a lot. Your own people put you there.
Unless we take the time to go to Ghana, where the gates opened, the negotiations were going on. I understand the negotiations were going on, and we had some folk who sold out. We got some folk here now who sell out. They just,
No different.
They just dressed a little differently.
No,
They just got a little more money.
Yeah.
And there's no reason. So our own people,
Saw value in
it's
colonialism.
my understanding, there was a little trickery going on. Well,
And there were promises made.
there were promises made.
Yep.
So our folk who were at the gates, who said, oh yeah, you need to go. Oh, it's great land over there. They were tricked just as well. Mm-hmm. Now, some of them might have known, but did any of them get on that boat and go?
Not if they knew.
Not if they knew.
That's right.
But they sent
But they
the
sent
sheep.
the others, selling them a dream.
Selling them a dream. Yeah, selling them a dream.
Yeah, and they got tricked because they thought that as a result of this, they were going to have economic empowerment, and that didn't come to play either.
That did not either.
No. So it was on both sides.
On both sides. So when you look at her story and his story, because it is her story and his story, it's not just his story, it's her story and his story. You look at both sides, you look at the whole story, and you see that there were many, many moving parts. And so, yes, economics was behind it, but what was the truth? Just like when we say, well, is Egypt Egypt? No, the Greeks were jealous. What'd they do? What'd they come in and do? They broke every nose off of every sphinx, every whatever they could do because they were jealous. But it really was the Kameshans. It was the Nubians were the original people. And we know, because equatorial, from a science point of view, equatorial, folk couldn't have been light. They would never have been as light as me. Never.
Never.
Their hair never been this curly. It would have been rough because of being in the sun, because of the weather, because of the humidity.
That's right.
Logically, you have to think through the process. You know, and the folk.
The region wouldn't have allowed it to be
Absolutely,
that
the
way.
region was not allowed. And from
That's
her story point of view, you know that's true.
Yeah.
So Jesus wasn't white. Impossible. Nobody reads the Bible, but they don't know. Woolly hair, darker in hue.
Okay, we dropping gems here. This is an education for your life. Okay,
You see, I'm totally quiet. Like I'm
not playing with her either.
Yeah,
I'm not
66
playing.
books, 39, 27, New Testament, Old Testament. But the whole point is, right now I'm in Exodus. I'm reading the Bible for the 8th or 9th time. I lost track. But Exodus, I'm now in Exodus. So Genesis talks about the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, they talked about all the wealth that was generated in 12 tribes of Israel. Right? And now we're going to Exodus. Well, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. But the whole point is, God's chosen people are God's chosen people. And we were chosen a long time ago. And we were given intellectual property long time ago.
And so you suppress that, and that's where you get today. And you start putting people in environments that then all of a sudden take away everything that you were innately given.
Yes.
And then it becomes a will and a struggle of the mind. So if you have the will to keep moving on, those are the people that don't become their circumstance or their environment.
Right, exactly.
If you don't, you succumb to that, and then you all of a sudden take on the mindset that this is how it's supposed to be. This is just the way it is. And it's the difference in a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So the fixed mindset says it is what it is, and they allow life to happen to them.
Absolutely.
The growth mindset says, no, I can still develop and learn and do things differently, and therefore they make life happen for them. And so when you see it in those sort of terms, it's easy to see how generational circumstances came to play. And when the system took away a couple things happened. The system broke up the home, the family
broke up
home.
the home, yes,
So the
yes,
relationships were destroyed because when economic hard times hit, we can help you, but we're not going to help you if there's a man in the house. So you just took that out. You just made the struggle real. You emancipated them. What am I trying to say? Emasculated the man and made him feel less than, that he can't take care of his family. But the woman got to do what she needs to do with the kids. She needs to age, so he can't be there. And then it just became cyclical.
Yes.
And so what you do, and what I've learned this because I've been studying, is you remove the ability to think positively, and you take away hope.
Yes.
When you take away hope, you take away so much of a person, because now there's no reason
to thrive.
There's no reason
or to call upon what's here. Yes.
So when we see now that we're not afraid of the police, we're not afraid of taking lives, we're not afraid of losing our own life.
Right.
This is all a function of hopelessness.
Right.
Because I don't have anything to live for.
And people don't. Two things our people don't do as much anymore when fast food came along is we don't sit down to a family meal.
Oh yeah.
Anymore. In our home it was. My mother was a diabetic. Yeah. And our grandmother lived with us. We don't do that as much anymore.
No.
Right.
Everybody wants their own space.
And
everybody wants to be.
Put them in a nursing home and all that. And I can understand we couldn't take care of them, lift up the hip. That happened with my grandmother later on at the end of her life. But she was like 86 when she passed away. But when you keep some sort of religiosity somewhere, where folk are believing in something as a group, as a people, as a family, it gives you hope. Whether they're genetic related to you or not,
it gives you hope.
It gives you hope. Faith
community gives you hope. You break the community and have us fighting against each other instead of for each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes it away.
Exactly.
Okay, can we switch gears real quick? I want to talk about your aunt. I know because we moving in time is flying. Let's talk about your aunt. We might have to go a little bit longer.
Okay.
But let's talk about your aunt. She is a United States.
This God bless her. She's my mother's cousin.
Oh, cousin.
It's okay. She's my mother's cousin. She's 94.
She your people.
She my people.
There you go.
She our people.
Yeah. Okay, get the book back up there. Yes, show it to the camera.
She has served the people.
Okay, and what was her name?
She is, on the book, she is retired U.S. Ambassador Cynthia Norton Shepherd Perry.
What is a
Okay.
United
she-
States ambassador?
The United States ambassador is appointed by presidents. So she has been appointed by Reagan and Bush.
Wow.
Okay.
Her first appointment, there's Reagan. Her first appointment was by Reagan, and they sent her to Sierra Leone, and she stayed there 3 years. Mm-hmm. It broke out in war. Then she got sent to Burundi. She stayed there 3 years. It broke out in war. So each time she's come back to the United States to her home in Houston, which is an absolute museum. I got to see her when we were together in
Yes.
August. And then the third time she got sent to the Ivory Coast. She was there for a period of time. Then she came back, and then her last appointment was Tunis, Tunisia. So she was in charge of the Developmental African Bank. So she developed the bank system, developed that whole process. She's met the Pope. I think there's a picture of her with the Pope. And I know I've got a picture, I'll find it. But she's met the Pope. She's been around the world multiple times. She's had villas where she's in her home now, where she has paintings. She's an amazing artist. She said, God gave it to me. He didn't give it to everybody, but he gave it to me. It was a gift. And so she's got these paintings that are the size of the wall.
Wow.
Of the villas that she lived in. And then some of the paintings were so big that they're in different large frames and put together on this huge wall so you can see the villa that she painted.
Wow.
Her children were born over there. Her grandchildren were born there. That's all they know. They just know, the international life.
That's
and
amazing.
More than one language and just serving the people.
And so I was going to say,
No, go ahead.
You
Go
go.
ahead.
No, you go.
I know. I was just going to say. So, how is your role different from a U.S. ambassador?
So I'm a United Nations ambassador. So
Okay.
I when I got my honorary doctorate in 2021 in December, I got it from the Trinity International University of Ambassadors, and their role is to cultivate ambassadors.
Okay.
But they're tied to the United Nations in New York. So we are not appointed by a president or serve at the pleasure of a president like a United States ambassador is. We both are ambassadors. I am consultative status. That means I live in the state of Indiana. I live in the city of Indianapolis, but I can go on peace missions to Africa, any one of the 56 nations. So we are to go to Ghana next year, ironically, and do a peacekeeping sort of mission or kind of mission, exact mission. My personal mantra is human rights, but we are tied to the Trinity Girls Network out of Atlanta. And so we will travel as a team. There's 3 of us that just made this appointment or been appointed to us in June officially, but we went in March to the United Nations, which is absolutely amazing. And so our credential allows us to swipe and go. So when we go to the United Nations,
So, pointed. Yeah.
we swipe and go. That means
So you don't have to be accompanied. You don't have to be
accompanied.
escorted. Yes.
I go escorted. So when you see
Okay.
that huge cathedral where you see all the various individuals with
Yes.
the microphones on the different languages, so we got an opportunity to go in and see from the top all the way down.
What's the most exciting thing you've done?
It's amazing.
Since you've been
In my life,
No, with that title.
it just came in June, and so I honestly, we haven't done a lot of great things yet. We are on our way because we're babies at it. But I will tell you honestly, the thing that I did in my own community, the apartment complex, which you see when you come into my condo community, the apartment complex had overgrown grass and trash that hadn't been done in 2 or 3 months. And I thought, well, as an ambassador, let me see if I can make some phone calls to some of my friends who have high positions. So I called a friend of mine at the city. I said, Deputy Mayor, the grass of this complex is overgrown by months. I need it cut. The next day, they were out there cutting the grass.
Amen. That's called influence. In case you don't know.
In case you don't know.
Okay, from the Branthropist
Or
herself.
maybe it's called the world ain't what you know, it's who you know.
Well,
Well,
some of that too.
some of that too.
But you've got to
But-
have the influence to even make
But
people.
they respected
That's
that
right.
I was
That-
calling
that's-
with my title.
That's correct.
And they didn't hesitate. They didn't wait 2 or 3 weeks. It
Right.
was next day. And then I called my friend, my community friend at the Department of Health, Dr. Virginia Kane. I said, Dr. Kane, I left a message for her. But later on that evening, I ran into her at a reception because one of my grown-up students who used to run track for me has a non-for-profit. Pink is forever. I saw her at the reception. I said, Dr. Kane, I need to speak with you. She looked at me. She knew it was important. I said, can we go out in the hall? I said, Dr. Kane, there's an apartment complex just before I come in where I live, where the trash has not been emptied. We're getting ready to go into a very hot season. You know, if that bacteria multiplies as it will, the rats will come and it will be a plague. She says, I know. I'll take care of it. The next day, the trash was gone. And the next day and the next day till it was all caught up.
There you go.
I called my other community friend, Congressman Andre Carson, who sent me a proclamation when I got my honorary doctorate. And I talked to his special assistant, who was the sister of one of my students. I said, here's what's going on with that complex. And they called the owners of the complex and said, here's what's going to happen if you don't do this, 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 and this. And so now when you go to that complex, they're painting. The grass is totally manicured like it should. The trash is totally gone. It's a total new look.
You know, isn't that amazing that sometimes we live in a society where it would have been a point in time where no one would have tolerated that to be. But now people can just walk past it and feel that's not their business. Or that's,
But it's our business.
but it is totally
community,
our
yes.
community.
And the people who lived there were just good folk, great people,
Yeah.
amazing people. One of the young men who walks his dog in our neighborhood all the time. That's how I got to know. He would walk his dog across in my street all the time, and I stopped to talk to him, got to know him. And so when he told me what was going on and what I saw, and I went to his apartment, you know, where the apartment building and what it looked like, and the playground is all messed up, hasn't been taken care of. The clubhouse doesn't work. The pool hadn't worked in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and this is and
these are really slumlords just buying property. They don't even live in Indiana, I guarantee you.
No,
and so
no.
they just
They were
collect and
trying
rent.
to drive the African American folk out. That's what they were trying to do. It was Latinos who bought it. Latinos owned the apartment complex behind it in perfect condition. I said, something's wrong here. Because Dela Cruz, who originally committed $250 million in our international area, he started doing things, the Lafayette Square area, he painted it up, made it look good, all of that, and then he stopped. Well, that left things hanging in the balance. The track that was supposed to get put in didn't get done, so on and so forth. So that's our community. That's where we live. The people that look like us don't look like us. It didn't matter. It was unacceptable.
Yeah.
And as my first appointment as an ambassador, you start locally and you go global.
There you go. I
If you
love
don't,
it.
you start locally and
In
you
your
go global.
own backyard.
Your own backyard. You can't say you're an ambassador and your own backyard looks like who did it and why, and you drove past it every day and said, "Oh, somebody else gonna do it." No, I'm gonna
That's
do
somebody
it.
else's problem.
Yeah, somebody's problem. I'm gonna do it. You know,
Yes.
because the people I know,
I love
and my
it.
sister used to live there a long time ago. My niece Jasmine is 34 now, 35 now. They used to live there. I was like, oh no, we're not doing this.
Okay.
You're not doing this to our people, black, white, green, purple, gay, straight, whatever. You're not doing this to our people. Not while I'm around.
Now, you say you deal with human rights. What are some of the issues that you've tackled, that you've overcome, and what are some of the issues that you really want to address moving forward?
Well, let me say human rights will be going forward because the appointment just came. So the human rights would be really, if you look just here in our city, the human trafficking that's going on. When you see young families, you see young women who are here, and then all of a sudden they've disappeared. And nobody seems to know anything. Nobody seems to be taking the time to do the research or to do the detective work to find out what happened.
Seems like it's quiet here. Why don't we hear more about it?
That's what's interesting to me too. And I believe, again, it goes back to the economics. Who's being paid off to
Because there's a whole lot behind that curtain.
exactly.
There's
exactly.
yeah.
It's
And
almost
so
like-
we're in the so consultative status too, as I said, means we live here. So we're also in our job as the ambassadors that we are is to do the research part of it. So we're doing that part and we're learning and we're still learning. So from the human rights point of view, I would say the human trafficking and the women, African American women, Latino women, young girls. I mean, when I look at from a familiar point of view, how people are with their children in public. Mm-hmm. Something I notice with our people, we don't let our people just stray off anywhere. Our kids stay with us, close by. I've noticed our Latino familiar families, they let their little kids run through everywhere, all the time. And I go, you can't keep doing that. And then when you see on the milk cartons and on the walls the folk who are missing, they're Latino children. We got to change our habits.
Yes.
I didn't say
Because you
black
can't.
folks
Your
change our habits.
culture might have worked there,
Right there. It does
but it
not
might
work
not work here. That's right.
Right.
That's
We
right.
have to change our habits.
Yeah.
So if you see us holding our children close,
Hold your children
You got
close.
to hold your children close because we're looking out for your children while we're looking out for our children.
There you go.
Let's hold that thought.
Okay.
We're up on our 30 minute. We're gonna go into part 2, and that part 2 is we're gonna learn a little bit more about you in general. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton